Friday Night Arcade is on the air. On this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at Red Zone, a rather unique top-down shooter for the Sega Genesis. Red Zone was developed by Xerinx and released by Time Warner Interactive for the Sega Genesis in 1994. The simple classification for Red Zone would be top-down shooter, but it's a bit more complex than that. Actually, it's way more complex. This game features rotating background graphics and textures, 3D vector sprites and polygons, real-time zoom, and full-motion video compression, all running without the use of additional hardware. I know all of that because the game humble brags all about it on the startup screen. But check this out, this is definitely not like anything I had ever seen before. I had no idea anything like this was even possible on a 16-bit console. The story is that a small European country of Zuristan, get it, has been taken over by communist loyalists after the fall of the USSR. The now communist Zuristan took control of boatloads of nuclear weapons that threaten the entire world. You take control of a crack team of special ops soldiers tasked with infiltrating the small country, disabling the nuclear weapons, and taking out the evil dictator in charge. The in-game cutscene has the too long didn't read version. Dictator declares nuclear war. You have 24 hours. Thanks, I got it. I'll take it from here, pal. Gameplay switches back and forth between overhead helicopter sequences as well as boots on the ground infiltrating various buildings and compounds. The helicopter sequences are impressive in that, unlike similar games such as Desert Strike, the camera angle actually changes as you turn your helicopter and the screen rotates in every which direction. I mean, take a moment to grasp what's going on here. This is all being done on bare-bones Sega Genesis hardware, no 32X or Sega CD add-ons. Textures rotate with three-dimensional perspective and it all runs seamlessly. The only downside is that it's pretty tough to control your chopper this way, and it seems like any little movement sends the screen hurling in all directions. Maybe it would be a little easier if you had the Sega arcade stick, but with the D-pad it's twitchy at best. When you're aiming with the reticle, it always feels like there's a little bit of lag, and you could end up wasting a lot of ammo firing all around the enemy like a moron. Your helicopter can also take damage. Get damaged on the side and you could lose your weapons. Damage to the rear rotor and you'll start spinning out. One of the programmers was evidently in the Danish Air Force prior to joining Xerinx, and they drew on his experiences to try to make the chopper as authentic as possible. Adding further insult to injury, you only get one life. If you die, that's it. Nuclear war breaks out and the whole world ends. Way to go, jerk. A generous password system alleviates some of the strife, but still, you'll need to spend some time practicing maneuvers and targeting. Unfortunately, there's no free flight practice mode, and some of the missions have time limits, plus you can also run out of fuel. So it's a steep learning curve and you'll have to figure it out through good old trial and error. You do get a variety of missiles to choose from, as well as standard bullets though, and once you get the hang of it, it's oh so satisfying going on a one-man killing spree. The computer even encourages this behavior. This game could have just been a top-down helicopter shooter, and it would have been an achievement, but they took it a step further by adding these sections on foot. Several of the missions are a mix and match of both. For example, in one mission you have to destroy a radar structure above ground, then land your helicopter and infiltrate the compound to install a virus in the enemy's computer system. These indoor levels are incredible given the hardware of the time, and the way it maintains a top-down three-dimensional perspective is, just look at it. Once inside the buildings, you can choose from one of 3 special operatives, each with their own unique weapons. I especially like Rocco's flamethrower, and the enemies don't just die, they run around in agony for a few seconds. They even took the time to program in your character having to walk slowly if he tries to step directly over a dead body. Nice attention to detail, fellas. Along the way, you can stumble across traps as well as find ammo, armor, and health. You'll need plenty of it too because the top-down perspective does make for some awkward aiming. It's not bad enough to be a deal breaker, but it's there. These interior levels also seem to have multiple levels of their own, and it's possible to fall through the floor and then just, how'd I get there? Overall, I feel like Red Zone is one of those games I probably would have completely sunk my teeth into if I would have had a chance to play it when I was young. Some reviews from the time were a little harsh on Red Zone and criticized the game's difficulty. You could make the argument that excellent graphics don't do much good if the player is never going to make it far enough to see them, and maybe it could have been dumbed down a bit to make things a little easier to pick up and play, but I still feel like this one is worth a look. If you're willing to get past the steep learning curve of the flying missions and some of the awkward mechanics in the top-down levels, the technical achievement Xerinx pulled off here is worth exploring, and the variety of missions keep things interesting. This one also doesn't go for much more than 10 or 20 bucks as a loose cartridge, so it's easily accessible if you want to check it out, and I highly recommend doing so. Well, what do you think? Did you get a chance to play this one growing up? What are some other games like this that you may have ever seen on a 16-bit console? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Thank you so much for all of your support.